You know that moment when you realize you've been living in someone else's shadow for so long that you've forgotten what your own voice sounds like? That's exactly where I was 3 months ago, standing in my kitchen at 6 in the morning, staring at a baby shower invitation that would change everything. I'm Sarah, and before I tell you this story, I need you to know something about me. I've always been the peacekeeper, the one who bites her tongue, the one who smiles and nods even when my heart is screaming. But sometimes, life has a way of pushing you so far that you finally find your backbone. And if you're someone who's ever felt invisible in your own family, or if you've ever wondered what it feels like to finally stand up for yourself, then please hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is going to take you on a journey that I'm still processing myself. The invitation was printed on expensive cardstock, the kind that screams, "We spared no expense," with gold foil lettering that caught the morning light streaming through my window. "You're cordially invited to celebrate the upcoming arrival of baby Thompson," it read, and my stomach immediately knotted. Not because I wasn't happy for my brother Jake and his wife Miranda, but because I knew what was coming. I knew this wasn't just going to be a simple celebration. With Miranda, nothing ever was. Let me paint you a picture of my relationship with my sister-in-law. Miranda came into our family 5 years ago like a hurricane in designer heels. She's the type of woman who makes you feel like you need to apologize for existing in the same room as her. Everything about her screams success and perfection. She's a marketing executive at some fancy firm downtown, drives a BMW that costs more than I make in 2 years, and has this way of making everyone around her feel like they're playing life on easy mode while she's competing in the Olympics. I, on the other hand, am an elementary school teacher. I love my job, I love my kids. But let's be real here. I'm not rolling in money. I live in a modest apartment, drive a Honda Civic that's seen better days, and my idea of a splurge is getting the name brand cereal at the grocery store. Miranda has never let me forget this difference between us. It's always been subtle, you know? Little comments here and there. "Oh, that's such a cute dress, Sarah. Is it from Target?" Or, "I wish I could be as carefree about money as you are." Death by 1,000 paper cuts, that's what living with Miranda's judgment feels like. But here's the thing about family, especially when you're close to your brother like I am to Jake. You put up with it. You smile, you nod, you pretend those little digs don't chip away at your self-worth piece by piece. Jake is my only sibling, and after our parents died in a car accident when I was 22 and he was 25, we became each other's entire world. When he met Miranda, I was genuinely happy for him. He deserved love, he deserved happiness, and if Miranda made him happy, then I was going to support that relationship with everything I had. The problem was, Miranda never seemed to think I was good enough for her version of the family she was building with my brother. And over the years, that feeling grew stronger and stronger until it became this constant weight I carried around. Family dinners where she'd talk about her latest promotion while I sat there feeling like I should apologize for choosing a career that mattered to me but didn't pay well. Holiday gatherings where she'd make comments about my simple lifestyle while showing off whatever expensive things she'd bought that week. Birthday parties where she'd somehow managed to make me feel like an outsider in my own family. But I endured it all because I loved Jake, and I could see how happy he was with her. Even when that happiness seemed to come at the cost of my own comfort, I kept my mouth shut. I kept smiling. I kept pretending that her constant subtle put-downs didn't affect me. I became an expert at swallowing my pride, at making myself smaller so she could feel bigger. So when that baby shower invitation arrived, I knew I was walking into another minefield. But this time, it wasn't just about me. This was about celebrating the arrival of my nephew or niece, and I wasn't going to let Miranda's attitude keep me from being part of that joy. I was determined to be the best aunt possible, starting with this shower. The invitation mentioned that they were doing a group gift fund for the baby's nursery instead of individual presents from a registry. Now, I've been to enough baby showers to know how this usually works. Everyone chips in what they can, and the hosts use that money to buy something big and meaningful for the baby. It's actually a really sweet concept when it's done right. The invitation said contributions could be made online through a link they'd provided, and there was a suggested amount of $50 per person. $50. I stared at that number for a long time that morning. For Miranda, $50 is probably what she spends on lunch on a Tuesday. For me, $50 is groceries for a week and a half. But you know what? I was willing to make it work. I was willing to stretch my budget because this was important. This was family. This was going to be my brother's first child, and I wanted to be part of making this moment special for them. I went online that same day and contributed my $50 to their fund. It hurt my bank account more than I'd like to admit, but I felt good about it. I felt like I was doing the right thing, like I was being a good sister and a good aunt. I even left a little note with my contribution saying how excited I was to meet the baby and how much I loved them both. I thought I was being supportive. I thought I was being generous within my means. The shower was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at Miranda's mother's house in the suburbs. Mrs. Chen is actually a lovely woman, nothing like her daughter when it comes to judgment and pretension. She's always been kind to me, always made me feel welcome in a way that Miranda never has. The house is beautiful, one of those sprawling suburban homes with a perfectly manicured lawn and a kitchen that looks like it belongs in a magazine. I spent the entire week leading up to the shower feeling nervous about it. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong, that somehow I was going to end up being the target of Miranda's criticism again. But I pushed those feelings down. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was letting past experiences color my expectations for this event. This was supposed to be a celebration, a happy day, and I was going to approach it with positivity and love. I chose my outfit carefully that morning. I wanted to look nice, but not like I was trying too hard. I settled on a floral dress that I'd bought for another occasion, paired with a cardigan and simple flats. I looked in the mirror and felt confident, felt like I looked appropriate for the occasion. I even did my hair in a way that I thought looked elegant but not overdone. I wanted to blend in, to be part of the celebration without drawing any unwanted attention to myself. The drive to Mrs. Chen's house took about 45 minutes, and I spent the entire time rehearsing conversations in my head. I practiced talking about how excited I was for the baby, how I couldn't wait to be an aunt, how beautiful the nursery was going to be. I was determined to keep things positive and focused on Jake and Miranda's happiness. When I arrived at the house, I could already hear the sounds of the party from the driveway. Laughter, music, the general buzz of conversation that comes with a room full of women celebrating together. I took a deep breath, grabbed the small gift bag I'd brought with a few baby books and a soft blanket I'd picked up, and walked toward the front door. Mrs. Chen greeted me with a warm hug and immediately made me feel welcome. She ushered me into the living room, which had been beautifully decorated with pink and gold balloons, streamers, and flowers. Miranda had gone all out as usual. There were probably 30 women there, a mix of family and friends, all dressed up and chatting in small groups around the room. I spotted Jake near the kitchen, talking to a group of his cousins, and he immediately came over to give me a hug. "Sarah, I'm so glad you made it," he said, and I could hear the genuine happiness in his voice. "Miranda's been so excited about today. She's been planning this for weeks." I looked around the room and spotted Miranda near the gift table, surrounded by a group of her work friends. She was glowing, absolutely radiant in the way that pregnant women sometimes are. She was wearing a flowing white dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and her hair was perfectly styled in loose waves that framed her face. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, like the perfect picture of motherhood and success. I made my way over to her, wanting to congratulate her and let her know how beautiful everything looked. "Miranda," I said, approaching her group with a smile, "everything looks absolutely gorgeous. You've outdone yourself." She turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, Sarah, you made it. I wasn't sure you'd be able to make it work with your schedule." There was something in her tone that made me feel like I'd already done something wrong, but I pushed that feeling away. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," I said. "I'm so excited to celebrate with you both." She nodded and turned back to her friends, effectively dismissing me from the conversation. I stood there for a moment, feeling awkward and out of place, before retreating to find my brother again. The first hour of the party went smoothly enough. I mingled with the other guests, chatted with Mrs. Chen about her garden, and played a few of the shower games that Miranda had organized. I was actually starting to relax and enjoy myself. The food was delicious, the decorations were beautiful, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. But then came the moment that changed everything. Miranda stood up in the center of the room, holding a glass of sparkling cider, and called for everyone's attention. I want to thank everyone for being here today, she said, her voice carrying easily across the room. Jake and I are so grateful for all of your love and support as we prepare to welcome our little one into the world. Everyone clapped and smiled, and I felt that warm feeling you get when you're part of something bigger than yourself. This was what family was supposed to feel like. This was what I'd been hoping for. I also want to talk about the incredible generosity that so many of you have shown, Miranda continued. The group gift fund has been such a wonderful way for everyone to contribute to the nursery, and I want to share some of the amazing contributions we've received. My stomach started to turn. I had a feeling I knew where this was going, and I didn't like it. Miranda pulled out her phone and started reading from what I assumed was a list of contributions. The Williams family contributed $200. The Johnson family gave $150. My work team pooled together and contributed $300. She went on like this for several minutes, announcing donation amounts and thanking specific people or groups for their generosity. I sat there feeling smaller and smaller with each announcement. My $50 contribution wasn't mentioned, and I started to realize that maybe it wasn't going to be. Maybe $50 wasn't worth acknowledging in Miranda's world. Maybe I should have stretched my budget even further. Maybe I should have found a way to contribute more. But then Miranda's voice took on a different tone. Of course, she said, and I could hear the shift in her voice immediately. Not everyone was able to contribute at the same level. Some people gave what they could, and we appreciate that too, even if it wasn't quite as substantial. The room got quiet. I could feel people looking around, trying to figure out who she was talking about. My face started to burn with embarrassment. I knew she was talking about me. I knew that somehow my $50 contribution had been deemed insufficient, had been categorized as not substantial. But it got worse, so much worse. Miranda looked directly at me, and I saw something in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Not just judgment, not just superiority, but actual contempt. Sarah, she said, and my name came out of her mouth like she was spitting out something distasteful. I need to talk to you about your contribution. The entire room went silent. 30 women all turned to look at me, and I felt like I was going to die right there on the spot. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, and my hands started to shake. I'm sorry, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Your contribution, Miranda repeated, louder this time. $50. For your brother's first child. For your nephew or niece. She paused, and I could see her working herself up to something. I have to ask, Sarah, is that really the best you could do? I felt like I'd been slapped. The room was so quiet, I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Everyone was staring at me, waiting to see what I would say, how I would respond to being called out like this in front of everyone. I contributed what I could afford, I said, my voice shaking. I thought $50 was the suggested amount. Miranda let out a laugh that had no humor in it whatsoever. The suggested amount, Sarah, is for people who don't have the same relationship to this baby that you do. You're going to be this child's aunt, your family. I would have expected you to understand that family contributions should be more meaningful than what a casual friend might give. I felt tears starting to form in my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wasn't going to cry in front of all these people. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I'm sorry if my contribution wasn't what you expected, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But $50 is a lot of money for me. I'm a teacher, Miranda. I don't make the kind of money that allows me to give hundreds of dollars for baby showers. And that's when she exploded. That's when whatever filter she'd been using for the past 5 years completely disappeared. Oh, please, she said, her voice rising. Don't give me that sob story about being a teacher. You chose that career, Sarah. You chose to work a job that doesn't pay well. You chose to live paycheck to paycheck. You chose to prioritize your own comfort over your family's needs. The room was dead silent. I could see Mrs. Chen in the corner, looking horrified. I could see Jake starting to move toward us, clearly uncomfortable with where this was going. But Miranda wasn't done. And frankly, she continued, I'm tired of pretending that your financial situation is anyone's fault but your own. You're 27 years old, Sarah. You're an adult. Maybe it's time you started acting like one and contributing to this family in a meaningful way, instead of always being the one who needs to be taken care of. Every word hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about the $50 anymore. This was about everything she'd been thinking about me for years, everything she'd been holding back, all the judgment and contempt she'd been carrying around finally spilling out for everyone to see. "You know what really bothers me?" she said, and I realized she still wasn't finished. "It's that you act like you're this martyred saint because you work with kids, like that makes you somehow noble and pure. But what have you actually sacrificed for this family? What have you actually given up? You live in your little apartment, you drive your little car, you live your little life, and you act like that's enough. Well, it's not enough, Sarah. Not when it comes to family. Not when it comes to the people who are supposed to matter to you." I stood there, frozen, as she continued her attack. I could feel the stares of everyone in the room, could feel their discomfort and embarrassment on my behalf. Some of them were looking at their phones, trying to pretend they weren't witnessing this. Others were looking at Miranda with shock and disapproval, but no one was saying anything. No one was defending me. "And another thing," Miranda said, her voice getting louder and more shrill. "I'm tired of walking on eggshells around your feelings. I'm tired of pretending that we're all equals here when we're clearly not. Some of us have built successful lives, and some of us are still playing house with finger paints and construction paper. Some of us contribute to society in meaningful ways, and some of us babysit other people's children for a living." That's when something inside me snapped. That's when 5 years of swallowing my pride, 5 years of making myself smaller, 5 years of accepting her judgment and criticism finally reached its breaking point. "You know what, Miranda?" I said, and I could hear my voice getting stronger, could feel something shifting inside me. "You're right. I am a teacher. I work with children. I make a difference in kids' lives every single day. I help them learn to read. I help them solve problems. I help them believe in themselves. And yes, it doesn't pay as much as your marketing job, but it matters. It matters in ways that your job never will." Miranda's eyes widened. She wasn't expecting me to fight back. She was expecting me to apologize, to back down, to retreat into myself the way I always had before. "And you know what else?" I continued, feeling 5 years of suppressed anger and hurt finally finding their voice. $50 is a lot of money to me. It's a week and a half of groceries. It's a tank of gas. It's a significant portion of my monthly budget. But I gave it gladly because I love Jake and I love this baby. I gave it because I wanted to be part of this celebration, because I wanted to contribute to something meaningful. I could see Jake approaching us now, his face pale with shock and embarrassment. Mrs. Chen was right behind him, clearly trying to figure out how to defuse this situation. But I wasn't done. I was just getting started. But apparently, my love isn't worth anything if it doesn't come with a big enough check attached. Apparently, being a good aunt means being wealthy enough to meet your standards. Apparently, family means keeping score of who gives what and making sure everyone knows where they rank. Miranda's face was red now. Whether from anger or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. "Don't you dare turn this around on me," she said. "This is about you being cheap, about you not caring enough about this family to make a real sacrifice." "A real sacrifice," I repeated, and I could hear my voice getting louder too. "What do you know about sacrifice, Miranda? What do you know about choosing a career because you believe in it, not because it pays well? What do you know about budgeting every single dollar, about choosing between buying yourself new clothes or contributing to your family's celebration?" The room was electric with tension. Everyone was watching this unfold like it was a car accident they couldn't look away from. I could see some of Miranda's friends looking uncomfortable, probably wondering if they should leave. I could see Mrs. Chen wringing her hands, clearly distressed by what was happening in her home. "You want to know what I've sacrificed for this family?" I continued, and I could feel tears starting to form in my eyes again, but this time they were tears of anger, not shame. "I've sacrificed my dignity. I've sacrificed my self-respect. I've sat through 5 years of your subtle put-downs and condescending comments. I've pretended to smile while you've made me feel like I'm not good enough to be part of this family." "That's not," Miranda started to say, but I cut her off. "I've listened to you judge my career, my lifestyle, my choices. I've watched you make my brother choose between his loyalty to you and his relationship with me. I've made myself smaller and smaller over the years so that you could feel bigger and more important. That's what I've sacrificed, Miranda. I've sacrificed myself. The room was completely silent now. Even Miranda seemed to have run out of words. Jake had reached us and was standing there looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Mrs. Chen was hovering nearby, clearly torn between wanting to support her daughter and being horrified by what she was witnessing. "You know what?" I said, and I could feel a calmness settling over me, a clarity that I hadn't felt in years. "You're right about one thing. I do need to start acting like an adult. I need to start standing up for myself instead of letting you treat me like I'm some kind of burden you have to tolerate." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "I contributed $50 to your gift fund," I said, looking directly at Miranda. $50 that I could have used for a dozen other things. $50 that represented a real sacrifice for me. But apparently, that's not enough for you. Apparently, nothing I do will ever be enough for you. I opened the app on my phone and navigated to the gift fund page. "So you know what? I'm taking it back." Miranda's eyes widened. "You can't do that," she said, but her voice had lost some of its earlier venom. "Actually, I can," I said, and I started the process of canceling my contribution. Most of these platforms have a cancellation policy if you change your mind within a certain time frame, and I've definitely changed my mind. "Sarah, don't do this," Jake said, finally finding his voice. "Please, let's just calm down and talk about this." I looked at my brother, this man I'd loved and supported my entire life, and I felt something break inside me. "Talk about what, Jake? About how your wife just humiliated me in front of 30 people? About how she called me cheap and selfish and implied that I don't care about this family? About how she attacked my career and my lifestyle and basically told me I'm not good enough to be your sister?" Jake looked stricken. "She didn't mean it like that," he said, but even he didn't sound convinced. "Didn't she?" I asked, because it sounded to me like she meant every word. It sounded like she's been thinking all of this for years and finally decided to say it out loud. I finished canceling my contribution and put my phone back in my purse. "There," I said. "Problem solved. Now you don't have to be embarrassed by my inadequate contribution. Now you can tell everyone about how your sister-in-law is so selfish and cheap that she actually took her money back." Miranda was staring at me with a look of absolute fury. "You are unbelievable," she said. "You are actually unbelievable. You're going to take money away from your own nephew or niece because your feelings got hurt?" "My feelings didn't get hurt, Miranda," I said, and I could feel that calmness spreading through me even more. "My feelings got demolished. You didn't just hurt my feelings, you tried to destroy my sense of self-worth in front of everyone who matters to me. You tried to make me feel like I'm worthless unless I can prove my value with money." I looked around the room at all the faces staring at me. Some looked sympathetic, some looked uncomfortable, some looked like they were judging me for making a scene. But I didn't care anymore. I was done caring about what other people thought. "You know what the saddest part is?" I said, looking back at Miranda. "I actually respected you. I thought you were smart and successful and accomplished. I thought maybe I could learn something from you about how to be more confident, more assertive. But now I realize that your confidence comes from making other people feel small. Your success is built on putting others down. You don't know what you're talking about," Miranda said, but her voice sounded hollow now. "Don't I?" I asked. "Then explain to me why you felt the need to announce everyone's contribution amounts except mine. Explain to me why you thought it was appropriate to call me out in front of everyone for not giving enough. Explain to me why you've spent the last 5 years making subtle digs about my career and my lifestyle." Miranda opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She looked around the room, maybe expecting someone to come to her defense, but everyone was just staring at her with varying degrees of shock and disapproval. "I'll tell you why," I continued. "Because making me feel small makes you feel big. Because having someone to look down on makes you feel superior. Because as long as there's someone in this family who's struggling, someone who's not as successful as you are, you get to be the star. You get to be the one who has it all figured out." I could see Mrs. Chen moving closer to us, clearly trying to figure out how to end this confrontation. But I wasn't done yet. I had 5 years of things to say, and I was going to say them. But here's what you don't understand, Miranda. My worth isn't measured by my bank account. My value as a person isn't determined by how much money I can contribute to your baby shower. I make a difference in the world, just not in the way that you think matters. I took a deep breath and looked around the room one more time. I'm sorry that everyone had to witness this, I said to the room in general. I'm sorry that what should have been a beautiful celebration got turned into this. But I'm not sorry for standing up for myself. I'm not sorry for refusing to be treated like I'm less than, because I don't make as much money as everyone else. I turned back to Miranda one last time. I hope you get everything you're looking for from this baby shower, I said. I hope the nursery is everything you dreamed it would be. I hope your child grows up knowing that their aunt tried to be part of their life, but their mother made it clear that my love wasn't valuable enough to be welcomed here. Jake reached out to touch my arm. Sarah, please don't leave like this, he said. Let's go somewhere private and talk about this. I looked at my brother, this man I'd loved my entire life, and I felt a sadness so deep I wasn't sure I'd ever recover from it. What is there to talk about, Jake? Your wife just told me exactly what she thinks of me. She told me that I'm not good enough for this family, that my contributions don't matter, that I'm selfish and cheap and unsuccessful. She was upset, Jake said weakly. The pregnancy hormones, the stress of planning this party. Don't you dare blame this on pregnancy hormones, I said, and I could feel my anger flaring up again. Don't you dare make excuses for her. She knew exactly what she was doing when she decided to humiliate me in front of everyone. She knew exactly what she was saying when she called me cheap and selfish. I looked around the room one more time, at all these women who had just witnessed the complete destruction of my relationship with my sister-in-law. Some of them were looking at me with sympathy, some with discomfort, some with what looked like approval. But I didn't care anymore what any of them thought. I'm going to leave now, I said, and my voice was calm and steady. I'm going to go home to my little apartment and my little life and my little car. I'm going to go back to my job working with kids, making a difference in their lives, earning my apparently inadequate salary. And I'm going to try to figure out how to process the fact that the family I thought I belonged to has made it clear that I don't. I picked up my purse and the small gift bag I'd brought with the baby books and blanket. Jake, I said, looking at my brother one last time. I love you. I love you more than you'll ever know, but I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending that this is okay. I can't keep letting your wife treat me like I'm some kind of charity case you have to tolerate. Jake's eyes were filled with tears. Sarah, please don't do this. We can work this out. Can we? I asked. Because your wife just told me exactly what she thinks of me, and I don't think there's any coming back from that. I don't think there's any way to fix this. I started walking toward the door, and I could hear the murmur of voices starting up behind me. People were beginning to talk, to whisper, to discuss what they'd just witnessed. I could hear Mrs. Chen trying to calm everyone down, trying to restore some sense of normalcy to the party. But as I reached the front door, I heard Miranda's voice one more time, loud and clear across the room. Fine, she called out. Run away, Sarah. That's what you always do when things get difficult. Run away and play the victim. But don't expect us to chase after you this time. Don't expect us to apologize for telling you the truth. I stopped with my hand on the door handle. Part of me wanted to turn around and respond, to get the last word, to defend myself one more time. But I realized that I'd already said everything I needed to say. I'd already stood up for myself in a way that I never had before. I'd already shown everyone in that room, including myself, that I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. So I opened the door and walked out into the afternoon sunlight. I walked to my car, got in, and sat there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and I felt like I might throw up. But underneath all of that, I felt something else. I felt free. For the first time in 5 years, I felt like I could breathe freely. I felt like I didn't have to worry about what Miranda thought of me, because she'd already made it clear that nothing I did would ever be good enough for her. I felt like I didn't have to walk on eggshells anymore, because the eggshells were already broken. I drove home in a daze, replaying the entire confrontation in my head. I kept thinking about all the things I could have said differently, all the ways I could have handled the situation better. But then I realized that there was no better way to handle it. There was no way to respond to that kind of attack with grace and dignity intact. Miranda had made sure of that. When I got home, I sat in my little apartment and looked around at my little life. My bookshelves filled with teaching materials and children's books. My kitchen table covered with papers I was grading. My couch where I spent my evenings planning lessons and watching Netflix. It was a simple life, a modest life, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, I felt proud of it. I thought about the kids in my classroom, about the difference I made in their lives every single day. I thought about the struggling readers who finally discovered the joy of books, about the shy kids who found their confidence, about the troubled kids who found stability in my classroom. I thought about the parents who thanked me for caring about their children, for going above and beyond, for making a difference. That's when I realized that Miranda was wrong about everything. She was wrong about my worth. She was wrong about my contributions, and she was wrong about what mattered in life. Money doesn't measure love. Salary doesn't determine value. Success isn't just about what you can afford to buy. But the hardest part was thinking about Jake, my brother, my best friend, the person I'd counted on my entire life. How was I supposed to have a relationship with him when his wife had made it clear that I wasn't welcome in their family? How was I supposed to be an aunt to his child when the child's mother thought I was too cheap and selfish to be part of their life? I called my best friend Rachel that night and told her everything. Rachel has known me since college, and she's never liked Miranda. She's always said that Miranda treats me badly, but I've always defended her, always made excuses for her behavior. "I'm proud of you," Rachel said when I finished telling her the story. "I'm proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. I'm proud of you for not letting her get away with treating you like that." "But I ruined Jake's baby shower," I said, still feeling guilty about the scene I'd caused. "You didn't ruin anything," Rachel said firmly. "Miranda ruined it the moment she decided to attack you in front of everyone. You just refused to be her victim anymore." "I took the money back," I said, still not sure how I felt about that decision. "Good," Rachel said. "Why should you pay for someone to abuse you? Why should you contribute to a celebration where you're not welcome?" Over the next few days, I kept expecting Jake to call me. I kept expecting him to apologize, to tell me that Miranda was wrong, to try to fix things between us. But my phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no attempts to reach out. I did get a few messages from people who were at the shower. Mrs. Chen sent me a text saying she was sorry about what happened and that she hoped I was okay. A couple of Miranda's friends reached out to say they thought Miranda was out of line. But nothing from Jake, and nothing from Miranda. A week went by, then 2 weeks. I started to accept that maybe this was really it. Maybe I'd finally pushed things too far. Maybe I'd finally burned the bridge between me and my brother. Maybe my choice to stand up for myself had cost me the most important relationship in my life. But then, 3 weeks after the shower, my phone rang. It was Jake. "Sarah," he said, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. "We need to talk." "Okay," I said, not sure what to expect. "Can you meet me for coffee? Just you and me, no Miranda." We met at a little cafe near my apartment, the same place we used to go when we were younger and needed to talk about serious things. Jake looked terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes, and he looked like he'd lost weight. "I owe you an apology," he said before I could even sit down. "I owe you a massive apology, and I don't know where to start." I sat down across from him, my heart pounding. "Okay," I said quietly. "I've been thinking about what happened at the shower for 3 weeks," he said. "I've been replaying it over and over in my head, and I keep coming to the same conclusion. Miranda was wrong. She was completely, totally wrong." I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. "Jake, no, let me finish," he said. "She was wrong to attack you like that. She was wrong to embarrass you in front of everyone. She was wrong to make you feel like your contribution wasn't enough. And I was wrong for not defending you immediately." He ran his hands through his hair, and I could see how much this was costing him. "I've been married to Miranda for 5 years, and I love her, but I've been blind to how she treats you. I've been making excuses for her behavior, telling myself that you were being too sensitive, that she didn't mean it the way it sounded. But watching what happened at that shower, seeing the look on your face when she called you cheap and selfish, I realized I've been failing you as a brother." I wiped away tears that had started falling. "Jake, I talked to Mom Chen afterward," he continued. She told me that she's always been uncomfortable with how Miranda talks about you, but she didn't want to interfere. She said that what happened at the shower was cruel and unnecessary, and that you had every right to defend yourself. What did Miranda say about all this? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Jake's face darkened. That's where things get complicated, he said. At first, she insisted that she was right, that you were being dramatic, that you needed to hear some hard truths. She said that someone needed to tell you to grow up and start contributing more to the family. Of course she did, I said, feeling that familiar sting of Miranda's judgment. But then I started asking her questions, Jake continued. I asked her to explain to me exactly how $50 wasn't enough for a baby shower gift. I asked her to explain to me why she felt the need to announce everyone else's contributions, but not yours. I asked her to explain to me why she thought it was appropriate to attack your career and your lifestyle in front of 30 people. And what did she say? She couldn't answer me, Jake said. She kept getting more and more defensive, kept making excuses about being stressed and overwhelmed. But when I pressed her, when I really pushed her to justify what she'd said to you, she finally admitted that she's always felt threatened by you. That caught me off guard. Threatened by me? Why would she feel threatened by me? Because of how much you mean to me, Jake said. Because of our relationship. Because of how close we are. She's always been jealous of the bond we have, and she's been trying to drive a wedge between us for years. I stared at him, trying to process this revelation. But why? I've never tried to come between you two. I've never tried to undermine your relationship. I know that, Jake said. But Miranda has always been insecure about being an only child. She's never understood sibling relationships, and she's always seen you as competition for my attention and loyalty. So she's been treating me badly for 5 years because she's jealous? I asked, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. That's part of it, Jake said. But it's also about control. Miranda likes to be the center of attention, likes to be the most important person in the room. And when you're around, especially when we're talking about childhood memories or family stories, she feels like she's on the outside looking in. That's not my fault, I said, feeling defensive. No, it's not, Jake agreed. It's not your fault at all, and I should have recognized what was happening and put a stop to it years ago. I should have told her that my relationship with you wasn't negotiable, that she needed to find a way to accept and respect you as part of our family. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing the weight of this conversation. I felt a mix of vindication and sadness. Vindication because I'd been right about Miranda's treatment of me, but sadness because it meant that 5 years of my life had been spent dealing with someone who actively disliked me. Where does this leave us? I asked. Where does this leave your marriage? Jake sighed heavily. Miranda and I are in counseling, he said. We started going after the shower because I realized that if we don't address this, it's going to destroy our family. The baby is due in 3 months, and I don't want my child growing up in a home where one parent is actively hostile toward their aunt. And how is that going? I asked. It's hard, Jake admitted. Miranda is having a difficult time admitting that she was wrong. She's having a difficult time accepting that her behavior toward you has been unacceptable. But she's trying, and that's something. What about me? I asked. Am I supposed to just pretend that none of this happened? Am I supposed to go back to swallowing my pride and accepting her judgment? No, Jake said firmly. Absolutely not. You were right to stand up for yourself. You were right to refuse to be treated that way. And I don't expect you to just forget about what happened and go back to the way things were. Then what do you expect? I asked. I expect this to be a process, Jake said. I expect it to take time for everyone to heal from this. I expect Miranda to acknowledge what she did wrong and make genuine amends. I expect myself to do better at protecting our relationship and making sure you feel valued and respected in this family. And if Miranda can't do that? I asked. If she can't acknowledge what she did wrong or make amends? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then I guess we'll have to figure out how to navigate that, he said finally. But Sarah, I want you to know that no matter what happens with Miranda, you're my sister, your family, and I'm not going to let anyone, including my wife, make you feel like you don't belong. I felt more tears starting to fall. I was so afraid I'd lost you, I said. I was so afraid that standing up for myself meant losing the most important person in my life. You'll never lose me, Jake said, reaching across the table to take my hand. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize what was happening. I'm sorry I let it go on for so long. I'm sorry I wasn't the brother you deserved. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. We talked for another hour, working through 5 years of accumulated hurt and misunderstanding. Jake told me about conversations he'd had with Miranda, about the things she'd said about me over the years that he'd dismissed or ignored. I told him about all the times I'd felt excluded or judged, all the times I'd wanted to say something but held back because I didn't want to cause problems. I want you to be part of this baby's life, Jake said as we were getting ready to leave. I want my child to know their aunt, to have a relationship with you. But I understand if you need time to process all of this. I want to be part of the baby's life too, I said. But I need to know that I'm welcome, that I'm valued, that I'm not going to be judged or criticized for who I am. You are welcome, Jake said. You are valued, and I'm going to make sure that everyone in our family knows that. That conversation with Jake was the beginning of a long and difficult healing process. Over the next few weeks, I started to rebuild my relationship with my brother. We talked regularly, went to lunch, spent time together, just the two of us. It felt like getting back a part of myself that I'd lost. But the situation with Miranda was more complicated. Jake told me that she wanted to apologize, that she wanted to make things right, but I wasn't ready to hear it. I was still too hurt, still too angry, still too raw from what had happened at the shower. I need time, I told Jake. I need time to process what happened and figure out how I want to move forward. Take all the time you need, he said, but know that she is genuinely sorry for what she said. She knows she was wrong. A month after my conversation with Jake, I got a text from Miranda. It was long, several paragraphs, and it was clearly something she'd thought about and worked on. She apologized for what she'd said at the shower, acknowledged that she'd been wrong to attack me in front of everyone, and admitted that she'd been treating me unfairly for years. I've been jealous of your relationship with Jake, she wrote. I've been insecure about my place in the family, and I took that out on you. That was wrong, and I'm sorry. I hope that someday you'll be able to forgive me, and that we can find a way to move forward. I read the text several times, trying to figure out how I felt about it. Part of me was glad that she'd acknowledged what she'd done wrong. Part of me was still angry and hurt. Part of me wondered if this was genuine or if she was just saying what she thought I wanted to hear. I didn't respond to the text right away. I needed time to think about it, to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted to have with Miranda going forward. 2 weeks later, Jake called me with news. The baby's coming early, he said. Miranda went into labor this morning. We're at the hospital now. My heart started racing. Is everything okay? Are they both okay? Everything's fine, Jake said. The baby's healthy. Miranda's doing well. It's a boy, Sarah. You have a nephew. I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. What's his name? Michael, Jake said. Michael James Thompson. We're calling him Mikey. I'm so happy for you, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything that had happened, I was genuinely thrilled that my brother was a father, that there was a new little person in our family. I want you to meet him, Jake said. When you're ready, when you feel comfortable, I want you to meet your nephew. I thought about it for a moment. Is Miranda okay with that? Miranda wants you to meet him too, Jake said. She asked me to call you. She said that she doesn't want our problems to affect Mikey's relationship with his aunt. 3 days later, I went to the hospital to meet my nephew. I was nervous, unsure of what to expect, unsure of how Miranda and I would interact. But when I walked into that hospital room and saw my brother holding his son, everything else faded away. Mikey was perfect. He was tiny and wrinkled and beautiful. And when Jake put him in my arms, I felt a love so immediate and overwhelming that it took my breath away. This was my nephew, my brother's child, and I was his aunt. Miranda was sitting up in bed, looking tired but happy. When she saw me holding Mikey, she smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she'd ever given me. He's beautiful, I said, looking down at the baby in my arms. He is, Miranda said, and he's lucky to have you as his aunt. It wasn't a grand reconciliation. It wasn't a magical moment where all of our problems disappeared, but it was a beginning. It was a moment of hope, a moment where we both chose to put our differences aside for the sake of this little person who was going to be part of both of our lives. Over the next few months, Miranda and I slowly started to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always smooth, but we both made an effort. She apologized again, more thoroughly this time, and I eventually found it in my heart to forgive her. Not because what she'd done was okay, but because I realized that holding on to anger and resentment was only hurting me. We went to family therapy together, just the two of us, to work through our issues. It was uncomfortable and difficult, but it was necessary. We talked about the jealousy, the insecurity, the ways we'd both contributed to the problems in our relationship. I want to understand why you felt the need to attack my career and my lifestyle, I said during one of our sessions. Miranda was quiet for a long moment. Because I was threatened by how comfortable you are with yourself, she said finally. Because you chose a career that you love, even though it doesn't pay well. And I chose a career that pays well, even though I don't love it. Because you seem happy with your life, and I'm not always happy with mine. So you tried to make me feel bad about my choices? I tried to make myself feel better about my choices, Miranda said, which was wrong and unfair to you. It was a revelation that helped me understand her behavior, even if it didn't excuse it. Miranda had been projecting her own insecurities and dissatisfaction onto me, trying to make me feel small so that she could feel big. We also talked about the money issue, about the baby shower and the $50 contribution that had started the whole fight. I need you to understand that $50 is a lot of money for me, I said. I need you to understand that my worth as a person and as a family member isn't measured by how much money I can contribute to events. I understand that now, Miranda said. I let my own issues with money and success cloud my judgment. I thought that because I could afford to give more, everyone else should be able to as well. I didn't consider that we all have different financial situations, different priorities, different ways of showing love and support. My love for this family isn't measured in dollars, I said. My commitment to being a good aunt isn't going to be determined by how much money I can spend on gifts. I know that, Miranda said, and I'm sorry it took me so long to realize it. The therapy sessions helped, but what really changed our relationship was watching me with Mikey. Miranda saw how much I loved her son, how much joy I took in being his aunt. She saw me reading to him, playing with him, babysitting him when she needed a break. She saw that my contributions to the family weren't monetary, but they were real and meaningful. "You're a wonderful aunt," she told me one day when I was watching Mikey while she ran errands. "He lights up when he sees you. He's an easy baby to love," I said. "He's got his daddy's smile. He's lucky to have you," Miranda said. "We're all lucky to have you." It wasn't a complete transformation overnight. Miranda and I still had our moments of tension, our disagreements, our old patterns of behavior. But we both committed to working on our relationship, to treating each other with respect and kindness. 6 months after Mikey was born, Miranda did something that surprised me. She organized a small dinner party for my birthday, invited some of my friends and our family, and made a toast that brought tears to my eyes. "I want to thank Sarah for being such an incredible aunt to Mikey," she said, raising her glass. "I want to thank her for her patience and forgiveness as we've worked through our differences. And I want to thank her for reminding me that family isn't about money or status or success. It's about love, support, and being there for each other." She paused and looked directly at me. "Sarah, you contribute to this family in ways that matter far more than any dollar amount. You contribute your heart, your time, your love, and your incredible ability to make everyone around you feel valued and important. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that, and I'm grateful that you gave me the chance to make things right." Everyone at the table was crying, including me. It was the acknowledgement I'd been waiting for, the recognition that I had value and worth beyond my bank account. Now, a year and a half later, Miranda and I have a relationship that I never thought would be possible. We're not best friends, and we probably never will be, but we're family. We respect each other, we support each other, and we both love Mikey with everything we have. I still think about that day at the baby shower sometimes. I think about how humiliated I felt, how angry I was, how betrayed I felt by my own family. But I also think about how standing up for myself that day changed everything. It forced conversations that needed to happen. It revealed truths that needed to be addressed, and it ultimately led to a healthier, more honest relationship with my brother and his wife. Standing up for yourself isn't always easy, and it doesn't always lead to happy endings. Sometimes it means losing relationships. Sometimes it means facing difficult truths. Sometimes it means being uncomfortable and uncertain about the future. But in my case, it led to something better than what I had before. I learned that my worth isn't determined by other people's opinions of me. I learned that I don't have to accept being treated poorly just to keep the peace. I learned that sometimes the people we love need to be challenged, need to be held accountable for their behavior, need to be forced to confront their own issues. I also learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean accepting bad behavior. It means choosing to move forward, choosing to focus on the future rather than the past, choosing to give people the opportunity to grow and change. My relationship with Jake is stronger now than it's ever been. He's learned to be a better brother, a better protector of our relationship. He's learned to stand up for me when necessary, to recognize when I'm being treated unfairly, to prioritize our sibling bond in a way that he hadn't before. My relationship with Miranda will probably always be a work in progress. We're two very different people with very different values and priorities. But we've learned to respect those differences, to appreciate what each of us brings to the family, to support each other even when we don't fully understand each other. And my relationship with Mikey? That's pure joy. He's walking now, starting to talk, and he has this infectious giggle that makes everyone around him smile. He doesn't care about money or status or success. He just cares about being loved, being played with, being read to, being made to feel special. He's taught me that the most important contributions you can make to a family aren't financial. They're emotional. They're about presence and attention and care. I'm still a teacher, still making my modest salary, still living in my little apartment and driving my Honda Civic. But I'm happier now than I've been in years. I'm more confident, more self-assured, more comfortable with who I am and what I have to offer. I've learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish or mean or difficult. It makes you honest. It makes you authentic. It makes you someone who values themselves enough to demand respect from others. If you're someone who's been in a situation like mine, someone who's been made to feel small or insignificant or not good enough, I want you to know that you have more power than you think. You have the power to speak up, to set boundaries, to demand better treatment. You have the power to walk away from situations that are harmful to your self-esteem and your mental health. It's not easy, and it's not always comfortable, but it's worth it. You're worth it. Your happiness, your peace of mind, your sense of self-worth. These things matter. They matter more than keeping the peace, more than avoiding conflict, more than making other people comfortable at the expense of your own well-being. I want to know, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you had to choose between standing up for yourself and keeping the peace? Have you ever felt like your contributions to your family or your relationships weren't valued or appreciated? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes just telling someone else what you've been through can be the first step toward healing and growth. And if this story resonated with you, if it helped you feel less alone in your own struggles, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that we're worthy of respect, that we're valuable just as we are, and that we have the right to stand up for ourselves when we're being treated unfairly. The baby shower that was supposed to celebrate new life ended up being the beginning of a new life for me too. A life where I know my worth, where I speak up for myself, where I refuse to be made small by other people's insecurities and judgments. It wasn't the celebration Miranda had planned, but it was the awakening I needed. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share this journey with you. And remember, you are worthy of respect, you are valuable just as you are, and you have the right to stand up for yourself. Don't let anyone, not even family, make you feel otherwise.